Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. One quick note, if you could just mute yourselves throughout this presentation, that would be great. We're going to talk about that in a second. My name is Christy McNamara. I am the director in the Office of Student Involvement and Leadership Development and the director of our new student orientation programs, which includes parent orientation. So I'd like to welcome you all to our second round of Zoom Q&As with some of our folks from campus. This one in particular, as you can see, Residence Life and Chartwells to answer all of the questions this evening. We decided to do a second round of these Zoom Q&As because since May and June, a lot has changed. And so we wanted to give an opportunity to parents again to kind of ask some questions now that we have a little bit more of a concrete idea of maybe what September looks like, August and September, I should say. So that's why we are having these again. So just a few things. We are going to be recording this tonight to put up on our website, just like we did with the other ones. That way, anybody that couldn't make it tonight will be able to see it on our website. We are going to have you all muted throughout this call. We will be using the chat feature for any questions that you have. So please feel free to enter any of your questions in the chat at any time during this session. And we'll also be getting to all of the questions that you asked when you actually registered for our program online. So many of you asked questions, so we have those as well that we will ask first and then get to the chat questions, okay? So I'd like now to have our presenters introduce themselves. So first, we'll start with Residence Life, and I'll start with Adrian.
Good evening, everyone. I am Adrian Gage. I am the director for the Residence Life and Housing Office here at Worcester State.
And Kristen?
Hello, my name is Kristen Nelson. I'm the Associate Director for Residence Life.
Rebecca?
Hi, my name is Rebecca Giard, and I'm the Assistant Director for Residence Life and Housing. I'm in charge of housing operations, room assignments, and different things like that.
And Megan?
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Allery, and I'm the Marketing Director with Chartwells Dining Services.
And last but not least, we have a moderator this evening that will be helping us with the questions. Josh?
Hi, everybody. My name is Josh Katz. I'm the Associate Director for Community Standards, and I'm also one of the professional staff that help with the orientation program.
Thank you. So that's our illustrious panel of experts, as I like to say. So obviously, we would have loved to have done this in person, as I said back in May and June, but this proved to be a great alternative back in May and June for our first round, and we answered a lot of questions for folks. So please, again, please feel free to add anything in the chat that you have a question about, and we will get to that, okay? So if there are things, one more little side note, if there's something that's more on the personal side that you don't feel comfortable maybe sharing on this call, we have the contact information up here as I'll scroll through as we go along. You can feel free to also shoot them an email and they will get back to you about some personal issues if you have some, okay? So why don't we get started with some questions? Can you talk to me about what we have there?
Yeah, so the first set of questions is for the Residence Life staff. So the first question is, will we be able to help our students move into the residence halls?
Absolutely. So you should have got, if your student should be receiving the WU Weekly email we send out every Wednesday. During those 3 weeks of August 3rd through the 21st, your student will be assigned to one of those weeks. And during that time, you'll have the ability to help them move in. They should be going on and signing up for a specific date and time during that week. They can move all their stuff in. Basically, they'll show up, we'll hand them their keys. They'll be able to check out one of our giant blue laundry bins that they can roll back and forth to help them move in. And then when they're done, they'll just bring the laundry bin and the keys back to us. They will not be staying on campus at that point. They're just moving their stuff in and getting their rooms set up. Our goal is that they pretty much move in all their belongings. So when they come back on August 31st, that's a day where all of our first year students will be will be checking in and moving on for the semester. On that date, Our goal is that they come back with basically like one duffel bag and like their laptop, and that's it. Everything else is already in the room, so that it's more of a drop-off process on that day, and not, they won't really be moving in belongings at that time. It'll already be sitting there a couple weeks in advance. And on that check-in day, only resident students will be allowed into the buildings, starting from that first day, August 31st, from then throughout the semester. Our goal is that we keep the buildings as kind of like the only residents will be coming in and out. They can visit students in other buildings, but as far as like commuters or off-campus visitors, anything like that, starting on that day and moving through the rest of the semester, they won't be allowed outside visitors into the residence halls.
All right, the next question is, how will shared bathrooms and dining work?
Yeah, so Dowden Hall has shared bathrooms. So we are currently coming up with a bathroom schedule for students to utilize, just to alleviate the amount of people in the bathroom at the same time. Obviously, if someone has an emergency, they can go ahead and use the bathroom. There's also on floors 2, 3, 4, and 5. There are also community bathroom or single-use bathrooms on those floors students can utilize if it's not during their specific bathroom scheduled time. As for dining, I think I'll let Megan handle that.
Yep, so currently the dining spaces are going to have scheduled meal periods per the residence halls. Currently, we've already set up a dinner schedule, and we are working on a lunch schedule, also taking into consideration the commuters that might possibly be on campus as well.
All right, next question is, what is the cutoff date for deciding on resident status so we don't lose a lot of money?
Yep, so if they withdraw from housing by next Monday, which is July 27th, there is no cancellation fee, and they'll actually get their housing deposit back. After that time, up through August 31st, it's a $300 cancellation fee for new students. And then from move-in day, which is August 31st forward, it will be per their license agreement, which is a 60% buyout.
The next question is, if the school shuts down before the end of the first semester, will a refund be available?
Yeah, we can tell you what we did for this past spring semester when we closed early. From the date that the residence halls closed, students were refunded the remainder of the semester's housing and dining charges at that point.
I actually have a follow-up to the previous question, so I'm not going to wait on that. It talks about the meal schedule. Will that coincide with the students' class schedule?
It will not, unfortunately, but it doesn't mean that we're going to turn away a student if they are scheduled to come in at 4:30 for dinner, but they can't make it within their 45-minute window. We will never turn away anyone. We just are trying to get students more inclined to coming in these certain meal periods, so that way we can monitor how many students are actually coming in during a 45-minute window.
Thank you, Megan. What are the restrictions for Res Life students if they want to go off campus for family functions, friends get-togethers, etc., and then returning back to campus?
Yeah, so students can come and go from campus as they'd like, whether it's to off-campus jobs, visiting friends and family, going to the grocery store, different things like that. Students can come and go as they want to. There's no restrictions with them coming back, except if they are traveling outside of New England and New York and New Jersey, and they are going to travel. We have to figure out how we're going to know that so that they can quarantine for 14 days, as Massachusetts currently has a 14-day quarantine for, I think, 43 out of the 50 states.
Can they have a car on campus their first year?
Yes. First year students should go to the worcester.edu/parking website, and they can fill out the parking application there. It's also in their WU Weekly newsletter that they get on Wednesdays in their worcester.edu email address.
If my daughter decides to live on campus, but then decides it's too hard with COVID and anxiety, is there a deadline for second semester change of status?
Go ahead, Adrian. I think you're going.
Basically, it's up through the first half of the semester. The buyout is 60% of the semester. After that, the license agreement is regulations say that after the 8th week, it's 100% of the fall semester, and then a partial buyout for the spring. But knowing the way this semester has a potential to go, if your student needs to leave, give us a call, and we'll probably be talking on a case-by-case basis on a lot of that.
Adrian, can you just give what the phone number is?
Yeah, our phone number is 508-929-8074. Or you can always email us at the reslife@worcester.edu.
Thank you. Can students bring a small area rug for their room? And if so, what would be the recommended size?
Typically, our students bring a 5x7 area rug, and that covers just about enough space for under both of the beds and then over by the desks.
What precautions will be in place, and what happens if a student is tested positive in the residence halls?
We are specifically taking some apartments offline in some of our upper class housing areas. So in the Chandler Village apartments, if you've been on campus, it's kind of those dark brown townhouse looking buildings that are kind of farther up in the housing area. But we have some of those that are pretty much standalone apartments. They don't share stairwells with other apartments as well. They're kind of like a single entry. And so those are going to be the spaces that we use for isolation spaces if students do test positive, so that they would be separated from the rest of the campus population.
Also, to add into that, dining services will work with Residence Life to identify these students, and we have a COVID feeding schedule in place. So these students will go on a 2-week cycle menu that's already been created. So that way it's safe for us to package the food and to gear up one of our associates to deliver it to those rooms as well.
Students at that time will also, they'll be receiving from our health services. We'll be checking in with them 1 to 2 times a day through telehealth, just to kind of keep tabs on how they are doing, if they need anything else from the campus, from anyone on campus, or if they're having any other challenges, but basically just to keep track of how their health is doing during that time.
The last question for Residence Life, we talked about the students assigned the different weeks in August, but I believe, Adrian, you already answered that question. Now that students move-in days assigned during the weeks, will students be staying on campus? No. When will freshmen be allowed to move in? That 31st for check. We did ask that already.
And on the 31st, when students arrive, I'm not sure that anybody had asked this at this point, but we will be testing all residents once a week, starting on that day when they move on to campus. So once they're dropped off, they will get do the self-test for COVID. That'll be their first one. Then they'll pick up their keys, and then they'll be able to go to their room. But we'll do a weekly, and we're sending out information in this week's Woo Weekly that will explain kind of that testing protocol in more detail.
In case your students are nervous, which we've heard frequently, it is a self-administered, very shallow nasal swab that they all do themselves under medical personnel will be in the testing area at all times. And they'll sign up on an app. So it can be around their schedule, around their work schedule. And as long as they do it weekly, they'll be all set. It's also a quick result, so we'll know within 24 hours. And that's really just asymptomatic testing. If a student reports symptoms, they'll go through our health services office immediately. They'll contact them, and health services will make sure that they get the help they need, and they'll get a test as well. But they won't be going to our testing center, as we wouldn't want somebody with symptoms to go there.
Adrian, a follow-up to the August 31st question. What time are students due to be on campus?
They will receive a schedule with that. It'll be It'll be later in August when we send that out. It'll have all that information of like, here's the time schedule of when to arrive. We're still looking at exactly what that day will look like, because we're very accustomed to moving in a large number of people at once. It's a new experience to also test them at the same time. So we're trying to figure all that out, and so we'll send that out in the weeks to come.
Thank you. Megan, we got a couple questions for you. With the option of takeout dining hall meals and requiring reservations for dine-in, what, if anything, will or can be done to monitor how often each student does what? And any thoughts on rotating dining schedules so all students are encouraged to dine in?
So right now we can track in our Blackboard system when a student swipes, but it's not necessarily something we have an ongoing running system with, that we have to run reports to get that type of information. But the takeout is going to be offered for all dining locations, including the All You Care to Eat dining facility of Sheehan. At this time, we are not changing the dining schedule, but like I said, we're not going to turn away anyone either from coming into the dining hall. But that would be something I would probably work hand in hand with ResLife. If we wanted to switch it up mid-semester, we could probably do that. But we have a lot of social distancing in those dining halls, and we have taken away a decent amount of seats. We're probably from a 600 seat facility in Sheehan Dining Hall down to around 220 seats currently.
Last question for Megan. Is there a dining plan for commuters?
Yep, there are 2 dining plans for commuters. They are block plans, so they are meal swipes for the Sheehan Dining Hall, and you can purchase them through the Dine on Campus website, which is dineoncampus.com/WSU.
All right, so those are all our pre-submitted questions. So what I'm going to do, we did have a bunch of questions that came through, so I'm just going to start from the beginning. Christy, this is for you. Can we please get the link to the recordings for the website? We were unable to find them earlier from previous parent Zooms.
Oh, okay. I'll check that. They should be on there, but I can make sure that they are by next week if they're not there.
All right, Res Life. My daughter got her room assignment, but she's not sure how to find out who her roommate is and meet her in advance of school starting. Please advise on how this works.
Yep. So the roommate assignments will be in their My Housing account. They know how to log in that. That's where they sign their license agreement, select their meal plans, things like that. If no one shows up, it is because that roommate that they did have assigned has withdrawn from housing, and we are working to fill those spaces because majority of the freshmen who or first year students who are losing roommates have reached out and just said, I really do want a roommate. I don't want to be by myself. So we are working to condense those people together. So that might be your son or daughter moving to another room or someone moving in with them. But I would say just keep checking your My Housing account on a daily basis, and that will be updated.
How many people are currently registered to live on campus?
1,303.
All right. Will kids have the opportunity to visit the dining hall to get snacks and or water throughout the day?
So Sheehan Dining Hall has the set meal periods of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And typically we would have usually had a continental period in between breakfast and lunch and dinner, but we feel that it is necessary for us to close the dining hall during these continental meal periods to do a more detailed cleaning of the facility. But the retail locations will be open, but we are requesting that students utilize a new mobile ordering system called Boost. It's B-O-O-S-T. It can be found in the App Store on your Android or iPhone. And we really recommend they download that before coming to campus, so that way they can use the mobile ordering system for retail locations.
Megan, will their one card be linked to that, or will it have to be right from a credit card or bank account?
Yep, they can use any form of payment, including their one card.
All right, so let's see. We logged in a few, will there be an outdoor dining space made available for students? Everything's shown that outdoor activities are safer.
Yes, please. We have moved Adirondack chairs and tons of picnic tables to upper campus so that people can dine outside. There's plenty of lawn space as well on upper campus. So we'll be working with students to make sure that they're as comfortable as possible, but we agree we're going to try and do as many things outside as we can.
Are there jobs? Oh, go ahead.
Sheehan also has a patio for a dine-in option.
Are there jobs available on campus if the student did not receive work study, and where would they apply for on-campus jobs?
Great question. They can go right to our human resources on our website, and they'll find student positions there. And there's plenty of, we call them O3 positions, which are any position that is not a work study position. So just for an example, we have desk assistants in the residence halls. So if they want to work in the residence halls, they'd be able to apply for that position. There's also positions in the wellness center. There's tons of things to do on campus, so they should check out that website.
Question, it was asked and answered earlier, but if students do not wear a mask outside the room, will there be a penalty? I know Kristen answered that students will be agreeing to a social responsibility agreement before moving in with the residence halls. In my other role as community standards, they may go through the conduct process for not wearing a mask. It is required, a face covering is required on campus at all times unless you are in your room. If a student has a roommate currently and their roommate may not attend, what will happen? Will they be assigned a single? I think Becca answered that earlier. They'll move them down. If a student tests positives, do their roommate isolate as well?
Yes. So if a student starts showing symptoms and needs to quarantine, then we will quarantine them and their roommate at that point. And then they would both be tested to see. With the fall coming up, it could be ragweed, but we're gonna try to take as many precautions as we possibly can. But they will be tested, and if the student becomes positive, but the roommate is in quarantine and doesn't test positive at all, then the isolation will be specifically for those who test positive. We will have separate spaces for those folks who are quarantined, which is quarantine is our terminology for people who may have symptoms but are waiting to see if they actually are testing positive, and then isolation is for students who have tested positive as well. So there's a difference there. One's kind of a waiting while you're trying to find out if you do have COVID. The other one is once you have been determined to. There is also if a student tests positive and the family would rather them come home during that time, that is also a possibility. And we would communicate with the student, and student communicating with health services to say, what are they looking to do at that point.
But please know that if they do test positive and they are on campus, we will feed them. They will have access to health care. So we understand that not every student can go home, and we've had a lot of questions about that from students. I don't think my family wants me to come home if I test positive, but we will care for them, and we'll be in communication with you during that time.
Adrian, a follow-up to that, will parents or guardians be notified if their student tests positive?
My guess is they would probably be notified by the student. I have not heard that the school will be, so the true answer is I don't know. But I think the student would be notified if they're doing our weekly testing and it comes up, they would be notified about that. I do not believe that I've heard anywhere that we would be notifying parents as well.
Unless they're under 18. If your student is arriving to campus and they're under 18, you would be notified, as well as you'll have to sign off that it's okay for them to be tested weekly.
All right, what's the policy for first year fridge and microwave? Are there rental fridges that have microwaves?
Doesn't everybody love a regular question about carpets and fridges? It's so nice to hear.
It's refreshing. It's refreshing.
It's so refreshing. You can have a refrigerator and a microwave. You can even rent a micro fridge through a company called Micro Fridge. And that information is actually in this week's Woo Weekly. And I keep referring to this newsletter, but we really work hard to make sure that we're not overwhelming your student with 400 emails a week. So we put it all in a newsletter. So the contact information and the website will be in there this week.
Do you know if commuters are being tested as well?
The most current information I have is that commuters are not going to be tested.
If my student decides not to live in the rest halls in the fall, can they still live there in the spring? Also, we have a better lead time on whether or not classes will be online versus live in the spring.
If we have a space available, we will definitely house your student. They should email reslife@worcester.edu in November so that we can start that process. Just so everyone knows, that is a very common thing that students are saying. So students definitely want to live on campus. They just want to see if spring is normal. As for lead time on classes, I am not really sure on that. Hopefully, but I really don't know.
How many people can a student have with them to help on the early move-in date?
We were asking that if the student brings 1 to 2 people, because we will be bringing about 100 to 150 people to campus each of those days, or there's enough space for that many people each day. So we're just trying to keep those numbers as manageable as possible. So 1 to 2 people, or 1 to 2 helpers or family members is what we're requesting.
What is the process for a student who comes home and then needs to go back to school?
Well, it would depend on where home is. If home is New England, New York, or New Jersey, then those areas that Massachusetts has deemed to be not needing quarantine, they can go home as needed, and they can come back, and they're free to kind of travel back and forth. For students who are outside of those, when we've already communicated with those students to say when they come for the beginning of the semester, they have to quarantine inside Massachusetts or inside those New England states for 14 days before the semester starts. So if they go home or go back to those states outside of that New England block during the semester or something, then the Massachusetts would require that they re-quarantine for 14 days when they return to campus.
A follow-up to that, Adrian, if their student is taking classes in person, will the faculty be notified, and will those absences be excused during quarantine?
They would still go to class. They would just do it online. So for students who are whether they're quarantined or whether they are commuting, there is going to be a health tracker app that goes along with the testing, and so students will be asked that every morning when they get up, they enter how they feel into that app. And then our understanding is that if the app says, you know what, because you have a scratchy throat, how about you stay in your room for the day? The classes are supposed to be designed so that if they aren't able to be in person in class today, the class will also be available online at the same time, because of the number of people, the smaller number of people allowed into class. Some of those are alternating as well, but they should have that. Our understanding is that all classes will have that flexibility. So you won't have to miss class just because you need to be home or something else.
What size TV is appropriate for dorm rooms?
You'd be surprised what they bring.
I
Let me tell you, the room doesn't need 2 TVs, right? A lot of people show up with 2 TVs. Unless you have a headset, you're both not watching TV at the same time. You'll drown each other out. So it really depends on what you and your roommate talk about, or what your students and their roommate talk about. So it doesn't really matter. I wouldn't bring something too big so that it can't fit in your car. But we've seen that too. So whatever they need, they could bring the one from home if they have one.
All right, what meal plan do you recommend for incoming freshmen?
Really, it should be worked around the student's schedule. So the student has probably already taken their placement test and maybe have seen their schedule. But really, we recommend the grand meal plan just because it has a well-balanced variety of meals in Shein and then the amount of dining dollars. But really this semester, it's going to be, my recommendation's a little bit different than it normally is, just due to the fact that you can do takeout from wherever, whereas before we really didn't have that in Shein. So if there's somebody who thinks they're going to utilize mobile ordering more in retail locations, I would suggest something with some higher dining dollars. But in Shein, you will be able to see the menus ahead of time for every single meal period. So that way, before you come into the dining hall, you can take a look on the Dine on Campus app. So the same website has an app version, and it gives you real-time information on all the meals, so you know exactly what you're getting at Shein before you visit the dining hall.
Where else can a student study other?
Can you repeat that, Josh? You cut out a little bit.
Sure. Where else can a student study other than in their room?
We have plenty of places on upper campus. We have lounges that will have social distancing restrictions as well as occupancy restrictions, and those will all be posted. But there's also space on lower campus. We have a student center with seating that Christy and Josh's offices are in, as well as in May Street, they'll be offering lounge space for students who want to study, which is on campus, but a little bit across the street. So they'll have plenty of opportunity to not just sit in their rooms, which is something that we've been hearing a lot. I don't want to come to campus and just sit in my room. You won't have to. There'll be plenty of places to go.
The Shein suites are just bedrooms with a shared bathroom space, correct? Is there a common space there?
There's not a common space inside the suite there, but there are lounges and like quiet study lounges on every floor.
How do kids find out if their classes that they've already registered for will be online, face-to-face, or a hybrid?
So what they can do right now is to log into their web advisor, which is right off of the student page on our website. They'll be able to find that. That'll tell them the classes that they have. And then in the comments section, it'll tell them what, if it'll be hybrid, how many days a week it'll meet in person, or if it'll be asynchronous or synchronous learning. So will they be with a teacher, a faculty member remotely, or doing work on their own?
Do the windows in Dowden Hall open to allow air circulation?
Oh my goodness, yes. And bring a fan, maybe two. We'll actually be encouraging our residents to bring fans, even the residents in Shein. All of our filters in our residence halls have been changed so that they're collecting as many, they've been made smaller to collect the smaller particles from breathing essentially. So we are going to suggest that our residents also have a fan and leave their windows open, which we never do because nobody likes air conditioning going out the window. But Shein Hall does have air conditioning and Dowden does not, so fans are recommended.
Will the Wellness Center be open, and is there a plan for students to sign up for a time to work out?
Yes. Yes to both of those, but I'm not sure the details. Are you inviting? I'm not sure. Students will hear from Wellness Center during orientation, yes?
Yes, during orientation, we'll give some more information about the Wellness Center, as well as there will be a large-scale campus conversation for students that has to do with the Wellness Center, as well as student involvement. And I believe it's August 13th, so they'll get that information sent to them.
If students don't buy the micro fridge combo, are they able to buy individual devices and bring them?
Yes, they are. And what we suggest is if you're in the process and you're going to buy something, then we always recommend that you buy Energy Star. But if you already have a mini fridge, or if you're the cousin, sister's brother just graduated and you have one that's older and it may not be, we definitely don't, you don't need to go buy a brand new one. We just say if you are going to buy a new one, we do prefer if you bring Energy Star brand or Energy Star rated ones.
Do you offer insurance for students' belongings?
Most families, if they want to do that, they can do a kind of like an apartment rider on your home insurance, like a home. And so if you ask your homeowner's insurance, typically they can do like an add-on to that is what most families tend to do.
All right. Will there still be a bus and shuttle service to downtown Worcester?
Christy, Christy,
Can I
I'm
break up
sure
with
the
you?
Worcester buses are still running, or at least I see them around. So those
Yeah,
will.
the WRTA is still running. We don't have a specific shuttle on campus that goes around Worcester, but there are two to three stops right out front of the campus.
Does Dowden Hall have an area where students can use, I'm assuming, a common microwave, as they're trying to limit the items taken into the res hall in the fall semester?
No, right now Dowden does not have a shared space like that. Sheehan Hall does have that kitchen space, which will have to be reserved by students to be able to use the kitchen, but Dowden does not.
One of the things we suggest is if you have a conversation with your roommate and say, you know what, how about if I bring the TV and you bring the microwave or something like that, just to kind of split the amount of items each family needs to bring.
Will the bookstore be open?
Yes. the
Or when
bookstore-
will the books, yeah, will the bookstore be open is the question.
It will be open. At this moment, I'm not sure. It's within the student center. I'm not sure exactly when students will be allowed physically in, but I believe it will be in August. Hopefully, we're hoping to maybe arrange something where when students come to actually drop off their belongings, hopefully it will be open, so we can kind of do all that at once.
We are reaching out to some of the other offices on campus. So if you need to take your one card picture, that office will be open from that August 3rd to the 21st. So when you come to move your students' belongings on campus, they could also swing by the one card office and take their picture for their ID. But the bookstore is one of the ones on our list that we're trying to get some of that information. So once we have that information, we would be planning to send that out in Woo Weekly, just to let you know, here's all the offices that are available when you're here on campus anyway.
You mentioned placement tests earlier. Are math placement tests being offered?
I don't know about placement testing, honestly. Do you, Christy? What they decided?
Well, this summer, they didn't do placement testing like they've done in previous years. I would suggest contacting, the Academic Success Center to see what their process is with placement testing. But they didn't do the standard testing this summer as they have done in the past, partly because of COVID, but I think they were going to a new way of doing the testing anyway. So I would probably reach out to the Academic Success Center, or come to the August 4th Q&A, as we will have somebody from Academic Affairs at that Q&A to answer those questions that are specifically academic.
All right, I have my stuff. Megan, you mentioned time frame for each meal. What will the time frames be for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
As of right now, we have 45-minute time frames for dinner and 30-minute time frames for lunch. We haven't discussed breakfast yet. We're thinking that we might not do time frames for breakfast just because of the fact that those counts are usually pretty low, and students usually can do breakfast in their rooms with different variety of options.
Will there be opportunities for students to engage, participate in activities, and have fun?
Oh my goodness, please let that happen.
Absolutely not.
No fun.
Zero fun.
We know that this is a really hard decision, right? This is a really scary decision, but we are not into running a jail, and we will be offering opportunities for students to be social, because college students are social, and they'll be social on their own, right? If we don't offer them opportunities. So we will be offering them opportunities in the safest ways that we can. And we'll be working with the Office of Student Involvement, which is where Christy works, to make sure that they have enough opportunities to do that.
We're looking at virtual programs, as well as some smaller in-person programs, maybe even more outdoor programs. We're actually working on that now. So we do intend to still fill the calendar with events. They just might be a little different than they have been in the past. But all of our student organizations will still be up and running too, for students to get involved in.
Are there cable TV hookups in rooms, Wi-Fi data connections?
Yes, to all of those.
All right.
There's also Wi-Fi throughout buildings on campus. And around the residence halls, because the residence halls are very close together, there is a good number of places like on the patios between buildings where your Wi-Fi will also connect.
There is air conditioning in Sheehan Hall, not in Dowden. How do students find out if the move-in day that they chose, their items, their item move-in day is the day that they will have?
Sorry, I was muted. Whatever day and time they chose is what they will get. Each slot was limited to 25 people, so once it reaches that, no one else can sign up for it and it doesn't become an option anymore. They will also get a confirmation email next week with further instructions and their confirmed date and time, just to reiterate that to them. They can also see it in their My Housing account under room assignments.
Megan, will outtakes in Dowden Hall be open?
Yep, the Market Dowden will be open. What change that will probably come to that though is the elimination of the ordering items of bagel sandwiches and some other hot food.
Is there a laundry room in the freshman residence halls?
Yes. So they should learn how to do laundry before they get there. Another question, I'll just take it now, is if we'll be restricting, they'll have to sign up for laundry times. They do not. The laundry rooms are pretty large in Sheehan and Dowden Hall, and they'll just have occupancy guidelines. We did some quick research, and last year there probably wasn't more than 3 people at a time in the laundry room anyways, and they're big enough for that.
Is a printer recommended to bring, or is most material going to be submitted digitally, and or are there shared printers available?
Yes, you do not need to bring a printer unless you really want to. There is a printer in Dowden as well as in Sheehan. We also have printers in the library. There's plenty of places to print on campus, but most of the work that they'll be doing, especially this fall, will be electronic.
Does anyone know if the cancellation of fall sports includes intramural activities?
I would assume that some, if not all of them, would probably be canceled. But I know Dean and his team in the Wellness Center are working on some other options, whether it's virtual. They've been doing things all summer actually on their social media. So I would take a guess that most of them would be because of the type of sports that they did have.
Will students get their keys to their room on the August early move-in day?
They will get their keys to move into their room. Then once they are done moving in, when they come back and return their blue bin, they will return their keys, and then we will give them their license back. We ask for a license to be used as collateral, and we're going to be sending out in Woo Weekly tonight like a 2-page document on what those 3 weeks in August look like very specifically. So feel free to reference that as well.
Do they pay for laundry with their cards, or do they need quarters?
Their one cards, they can load money onto their common funds. You can load it on, there's machines across campus that do it, or you can go right online and do it from a credit card.
And then there was a second question about the gym and the walking track, and yes, those will be available. Those will be open. I would suggest that your student attend the campus conversation about the Wellness Center when that is happening. Those are all the questions that we have right now. If you have any more, please add them. If you haven't already, please put your name and town in the chat so we can keep track of who is there. Another question just came in. How do you find out the balance on common funds?
They can go into their My WSU, I keep calling them portal, maybe it's a portal, off of the main page. It's called My WSU, and on there you'll see a one card button, and they can go right through that website.
Any other questions from anybody?
Those good questions. I do like the TV questions too, and the rug questions. Those are the easiest ones.
Christy, that's all we have. How do you add to the common funds? Like Kristen talked about it, you can do it at any of the locations, or you can do it online.
You can do it too. So when they call you, you can log into that My WSU and you can add money from there.
How can students get their books or find out what books they need to get?
That is also in WebAdvisor. If they go into WebAdvisor and go to their class, if they go to their class list, they'll see a button that says book information. Most of them have been updated as the books had to be ordered. We do suggest having them look around on the accepted students Facebook page. There's students selling books that they've used in the past, so they should look around for the cheapest option for themselves, as I'm sure they're already doing, but that helps a lot.
Megan, what will happen to guest meals that were a part of the meal plan since they now cannot have guests?
That is something I actually do not have the answer on right now. I will take it down though and present it to the director tomorrow. That's something still a work in progress on.
Getting a meal at Shein will be a swipe on the meal plan. Yes, that is correct. So one card is for dining, but can be loaded with additional money for laundry and other things, question mark?
Yes.
So
We're all like, yeah.
their meal plan comes with a number of meal swipes that can be used in Shein as well as dining dollars. But then also there's a separate section that is common funds. So those common funds can be used at Chartwells locations for food and things like that, but it can also be used in vending machines. They can use it for printing, laundry. It's generic. It's basically exactly what it says, common. So it can be used in all the other places on campus as well.
Megan, can you add meal swipes?
You cannot add meal swipes as a resident. As a commuter, you can purchase an additional block plan. So if you purchase the 50 block and then run out of those meals midway through the semester, you can add another additional 50 meals.
But you can pay at the pod with
Yeah.
common funds.
Correct.
As well.
What should not be brought on the first move-in day?
Guests. Outside furniture. Lots of extension cords.
And
Drugs, alcohol.
On our website, there's like an FAQ section. It also has a things to bring and things not to bring list as well.
Yeah, for this fall, students should really, don't want to say bring the bare minimum, but really pare down what they're bringing. In August, they probably don't need to be bringing their winter clothes. It's probably likely that they'll be going home a weekend before then, probably Columbus Day weekend. That's a long weekend. So we really encourage them not to bring a ton of stuff, but also on the check-in days, which is August 31st, or September 1st, but August 31st for this group, it's really just bringing like a duffel bag of clothes, a backpack with your computer, and that's really it. There's not going to really be blue bins readily available. So it's really what you can carry to your room. So just keep that in mind as well.
Someone asked, is there a limit of the number of people allowed in the library? There is not, but each area has occupancy restrictions on it. So there's not a whole number allowed in the building, but each specific room and area has its own occupancy restrictions. Megan, you normally recommend the grand meal plan. Which do you recommend for the fall?
Based off of just coming back this week and knowing what all the restrictions are, I'm thinking your student would benefit more from a meal plan that might have some more dining dollars on it. Just having a few days to think on this, I would say that they're probably more likely going to use the Market Dowden to kind of stock their dorm room like they would at a grocery store. We offer a lot of grocery items there. And it will help us with our capacity in Shein as well. But there is the takeout option for Shein. So, they're more than welcome to come in there. We have these disposable containers. They can come through, visit all of the stations in Shein, just like they normally would do if they were dining in, and just take it with them and either eat in their rooms or eat outside or in another common area on campus.
So the two follow-up questions to that, can they do that on the grand plan, and can we make changes to meal plans?
Yep, meal plan.
Yeah, the meal plans can be changed within the first 2 weeks of living on campus, and that's done through the Residence Life Housing Portal. And then we take on the changes. You just need to give us around 5 business days to those changes take effect. And the grand meal plan works just like all the other meal plans. They have all the meal plans with all the She and Hall meal swipes will be available for dine-in or takeout.
Right now, the meal plan change is active just because I'm trying to get everyone the most accurate bill possible and get their preferred, the meal plan they definitely want to go with loaded onto their one card before they arrive. So that's currently available in their My Housing account until August 17th. So they have about 3.5 weeks at this point to change it, so they can go in there and do that. And again, it's to get you the most accurate bill and get them the meal plan they want to start the semester.
My son is ordering an absentee ballot. When will housing be finalized, and is there an address listed on his housing portal?
Yep, so housing, they should have already got a room assignment. If they didn't, chat me separately. I'm Rebecca Giard, and I'll look into kind of what's going on with their specific account. But their mailing address will be your student's name, I think it's Residence Life, She and Hall 101, and then 486 Chandler Street, Worcester, Mass. We can put that in Woo Weekly this week, just so you guys can start preparing for that stuff as well.
I would suggest maybe sending the absentee ballot home and then sending it to them, just in case. I wouldn't want the absentee ballot to get lost in the mail. And so you confirm eyes on it might be the best way to do that, if you can. But also students can get mail in our office. They'll get an email every time they get mail in our office to come down and pick it up.
All right, that is it.
Oh, nope.
Oh, Woo Weekly is the newsletter for the students, not the parents.
It is, but because we've had so many questions and we're pushing out so much information, we're putting the PDFs starting next Wednesday on our website. So if you go to the Residence Life page, you can, or actually it will be on the Safe Return page, the Worcester State Safe Return page, with all of the Woo Weekly, so you can keep up as well.
Can parents receive email updates as well?
This was kind of our workaround for that. We don't typically let parents subscribe to the newsletter, but we're going to PDF them as soon as we do them and put them up on the Safe Return website, so you can look at them on Thursdays, just to keep up.
All right.
All right. Record number of questions.
Yay!
More questions than all of the Zoom calls from May, June. That was great. So just to follow up on a few things. So we do have 2 more Zooms coming up that are on our website that you may have registered for, or you may want to at this point. The next one is Tuesday, August 4th at 6 p.m. and it's the Fall Safe Return to Campus Q&A. We will have our Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs as well as our Associate Dean of Student Affairs on that call. So that will be, if anybody has academic questions, that's a perfect place to go, as well as the other areas of student affairs outside of residence life and dining. Our Associate Dean can answer those questions. So that's a great option if you have those questions and want to register for that. The last Zoom that we'll have is Thursday, August 6th at 6 p.m. It's our transition to college with counseling services, and we also added student accessibility services this time around. So also you can go online and register for that as well. These 3 Zooms in particular were the ones that we knew would get the most questions. But if there are other questions that you don't feel fit into these Zoom Q&A sessions, or again, or maybe on the personal side, you can always email the orientation office at orientation@worcester.edu, or contact us via phone at 508-929-8615. Our website too is all updated at this point, worcester.edu/orientation. You can take a look at that for information about your students' online orientation program, which begins next week. Hopefully all of your students registered for that. If they did not, have them email worcester.edu and we will put them in a group. We are moving to the online program. Obviously, we couldn't do our traditional in-person program in June, but I think we came up with a pretty solid program for your students that covers literally everything, almost everything that we would do in June, just through a Zoom format and through videos on our website. For those of you too that didn't check out the videos that we had for parents and families on the orientation website, you can check that out too and see all of the videos that we did put up there back in May and June. You can take a look at those as well. You know, we've been working hard since middle of March, believe it or not, to try to figure out a plan to open in the fall. And plans have changed, just like probably for all of you and your families. Since March, every week it feels like something new is coming out from the state. And so we have been adjusting our plans based on what does come out from the governor's office. So we will continue to do that, obviously, through the semester. And hopefully in the spring semester, things will be a little bit more normal, but we will kind of keep an eye on that and adjust accordingly. So that's just something, it's very stressful, not only for your students coming in, because it is a little interesting, but you know, we've been working hard too. So I just kind of wanted to put your mind at ease with that. We've been doing a lot of work. I do see there are a couple more questions. Do we want to try to get through those, Josh, real fast? And then we're going to leave as life on to answer any other questions. We're just going to end in a few minutes. We're almost.
Yeah, Christy, one's actually for you. When will students receive confirmation email regarding their orientation date and time?
If they did register, they would have received that today. If they did not receive it today, please have them check their email. If they did not receive it in their email, have them just shoot an email to orientation@worcester.edu and we will take care of that tomorrow morning.
Flu shots are not required on campus.
I don't believe so.
They will, go ahead,
That
Adrian.
may have changed for this semester.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think we just heard, and we haven't heard the final on that. So it is, faculty and staff are being asked to get their flu shots, and it is in the social responsibility agreement. So we'll make sure that we're sending out that information before they get it.
Yeah, that just came up recently.
A question came up, is there an area instead of the students' room to take online classes?
Yep. They can sit in a lounge, they can sit outside at a picnic table, they can go to the student center or the May Street building across the street will be set up as a lounge, so there'll be plenty of space for them to get out. Even if they want to sit with another friend, they could do that too.
Someone up a little farther asked if they could bring some things like clothes on the second move-in day. Absolutely. The difference is we won't have the big rolling blue bins available on that day. And we're specifically trying to make that as much of like a drop off with as few number of items as possible, because the student will need to be carrying that themselves. So it won't be like there won't be as many like services and things like that available, because with the big blue bins, we do have to sanitize those in between. So that's why we're trying to spread that out on those 3 weeks. So they definitely can bring some things like clothes. We're just saying that the things that they need to bring, they would need to carry them themselves, because we won't be allowing any other guests into the residence halls, unfortunately.
That is
Okay.
all that's in there.
All right. So I'd like to thank our presenter.
Someone asked about flu shots on campus. We traditionally
I'm
do
sorry.
have flu shots available from health services.
Sorry, Adrian, I didn't hear you.
No problem. I just saw that pop up.
Okay.
One
Any
more.
others?
Yeah, another one just popped up. What are restrictions for having a guest?
Yep, so there's
Yes.
no guests in the residence halls unless they are residents of other buildings. Parents and friends can come up and hang outside of the residence halls. They just can't be going in the residence halls, and that includes, bringing groceries, helping with that case of water. It's really just to limit the amount of people in and out of the residence halls as much as possible to keep our students safe.
I do think that your student would probably absolutely love if you wanted to come and see them and possibly take them to Chili's or something like that from time to time. I'm sure they would not oppose that.
Students, a question just came in about students going into other students' rooms. They can. There is a limit. So if it's a double room, they can only have one more person in the room. And both residents need to mutually agree on that. It is their personal space, so they both need to be agreeing that guests can come in and different things like that. We're going to have roommate contracts and agreements and different things like that to ensure that everyone knows kind of what the feelings are for that.
All right, I think we're going to end our formal program here. So I'd like to thank the presenters for coming today. I'd like to thank the family members too who joined us. Hopefully you had your questions answered. Like I said, Kristen and Adrian and Rebecca will stay on for a couple minutes, and perhaps Megan if she can. If there are just some other maybe a little bit more specific questions. And yeah, that's pretty much what we have for you tonight. So thank you again. We look forward to seeing you in August. So have a good night. Thank you.